If your homemade chai is constantly coming out watery, bitter, or just kind of flat, you're probably making a few really fundamental mistakes right at the extraction phase. But hey, don't worry, because today we're absolutely going to fix that. Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's dive into this. Today we are breaking down the exact science and the perfect culinary formula behind the ultimate cup of chai. We aren't just going to carelessly throw ingredients into a pot. We're going to look at the actual science of extraction, flavor balance, and exactly why certain techniques give you that perfect velvety brew. So, here's the game plan for this explainer. We'll start by diagnosing some common mistakes, then establish the golden ratio for your ingredients. After that, we'll walk through phase 1, the spice infusion, followed by phase 2, milk and simmer. And finally, we'll wrap up by showing you how to customize the strength to fit your exact preferences. All right, let's kick things off with section 1, common chai mistakes. Figuring out where things usually go wrong in the kitchen is honestly the best way to guarantee you get it right next time. Now, this is a frustrating but incredibly relatable question, right? Why does homemade chai so often fall flat compared to what you'd get at a really great cafe or from a street vendor? I mean, you've got the right spices, you're using good tea, but somehow the magic just isn't translating into the cup. Well, it usually comes down to one of these 5 common pitfalls. If your chai is tasting bitter, you've over-extracted the tea leaves. Basically, you boiled them way too long and released all those harsh, astringent tannins. If it's weak, you either didn't use enough tea or you just didn't brew it long enough to build up the body. Now, flat is actually a super fascinating one from a scientific standpoint. This happens when your spices aren't properly infused, which usually means they were added at the completely wrong temperature, or you added them at the same time as the milk, which literally halts the essential oil extraction. Moving on, if it's too milky, the milk fat has just totally overwhelmed the volatile flavor compounds of the tea. And finally, if it's too sweet, well, the sugar is just masking the natural flavor profile of the brew. So now that we know what to avoid, let's jump into section 2 and establish our baseline blueprint, the golden ratio ingredients. Before we even think about turning on the stove, we've got to get our ratios perfectly calibrated. This right here is ground zero. 1 cup, or roughly 250 milliliters of water, perfectly balanced against 1 cup of full-fat milk. This exact 1-to-1 ratio is absolutely critical. See, the water acts as our primary solvent to vigorously extract the essential oils from the spices and those deep colors from the tea. Then, the full-fat milk is introduced later to provide lipid binding. That fat literally coats your tongue, rounding out any of that harsh bitterness and locking in those volatile spice aromas so they don't just, evaporate into the air. Seriously, do not skimp on the fat content here. It's a highly functional ingredient in the science of a good chai. And here is the rest of your blueprint. You're going to want 1 to 2 teaspoons of black tea. For that really authentic, deep color and bold body, CTCT, which stands for crush, tear, curl, is usually your best bet. The orthodox leaves can give you some amazing aromatics. Then the spice blend. 2 cardamom pods, a 1-inch piece of crushed ginger, 1 small cinnamon stick, and 2 to 3 cloves. A quick note here, crushing the ginger and slightly bruising that cardamom is absolutely essential. You have to break down those cellular walls to expose the oils. And finally, sugar to taste. It's not just there to make it sweet. It actually acts as a flavor enhancer that makes the spices totally pop on your palate. All right, with our ingredients prepped and our ratios locked in, we're moving to section 3. This is the most crucial stage of extraction, phase 1, the spice infusion. Listen, the order of operations here is everything. Step 1, bring only the water to a boil. Why just the water? Well, spices require high-temperature water extraction to actually release their aromatic essential oils. If you were to add the milk right now, the milk proteins and fats would lower the boiling point and coat the spices, completely blocking the extraction. This is exactly how you avoid that flat mistake we talked about earlier. Once that water is at a rolling boil, step 2 is to toss in your crushed spices. Then step 3, add your 1 to 2 teaspoons of black tea leaves. Step 4 is all about tannin control. You want to simmer this for exactly 2 to 3 minutes. Any longer than that, and you start pulling out those bitter, harsh compounds from the tea leaves, and nobody wants that. Now we're ready for section 4, phase 2, milk and simmer. This is the binding phase, where that raw, intense extraction transforms into a velvety, comforting beverage. At this point, we introduce our 1 cup of full-fat milk. Ideally, this milk shouldn't be freezing cold right out of the fridge just to avoid thermal shock to the brew. But once it's in, step 2 is to bring it to a gentle boil. Notice I said gentle. This is where the fat emulsification is happening. The milk fats are actively binding with the essential oils from the ginger and cardamom, creating this incredibly rich, unified flavor profile. Step 3, you strain it into your cup. And hey, here's a pro tip for you. As you strain, try pouring from a bit of a height. This technique, which is often called pulling the chai, is a real game changer. It incorporates oxygen, cools the tea down a bit, and creates this beautiful, silky microfoam head on top. And finally, step 4, serve up your perfectly balanced brew. If there is one golden rule you take away from this, it's this: simmer with control. Don't just boil it. I literally cannot emphasize this enough. Boiling with reckless abandon is the absolute enemy of a balanced chai. Once your tea leaves and milk are in that pot, aggressive boiling breaks down the milk proteins and forces the tea leaves to just dump every single ounce of their bitter tannins right into your drink. Control the heat, control the flavor. It's that simple. Okay, moving into our final section, customizing your brew strength. Now that you understand the strict scientific formula for extraction, let's talk about the variables you can play with. Because while the sequence is rigid, the final intensity is entirely in your hands. The real beauty of understanding this formula is that it puts you firmly in the driver's seats. Your perfect tea strength ultimately depends on the specific variety of tea you choose, the quantity you use, and of course, your own personal palate. You are the head scientist in your kitchen now. By tweaking just 2 variables, the amount of tea and your simmer style, you can completely transform the end result. Looking for a light chai? Just use a little less tea and a much shorter simmer. You'll get a mild flavor and a lighter color because you've stopped the extraction process early. Now, if you want that gold standard, balanced chai, use the right amount, our recommended 1 to 2 teaspoons, and a controlled simmer. That yields a super smooth, well-rounded cup where the fat, tannins, and spices are in perfect harmony. But if you're the kind of person who wants a strong chai that really packs a punch, you'll use more tea and push for a slightly longer extraction. You'll get a much richer flavor and a darker color. Just be super careful not to push it all the way into bitter territory. So, bringing it all together, here is our master blueprint. By following these exact, precise steps, you are actively respecting the chemistry of the ingredients. You extract the spice oils in boiling water first, you completely control the tea tannins with a highly precise simmer, and you bind the whole thing together with full fat milk without overboiling. And finishing it off with that high pour from a height, aerating the liquid through the strainer to create that signature frothy texture. It's just a perfect synergy of temperature control, timing, and lipid science. So, I leave you with this thought. Will you measure your ingredients and master the simmer on your very next cup of chai? The days of flat, weak, or horribly bitter tea are officially a thing of the past. You now possess the exact scientific formula to extract the absolute best flavor from your spices and your tea leaves. So go on, get into the kitchen, trust the ratios, respect the simmer, and enjoy the perfect brew. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy brewing!